A nudge to switch power suppliers, but with two-thirds still paying over the odds, is that enough? The regulator also says it'll cap prepaid prices for some of the poorest customers, but amidst those who play the game will still do best. Also this lunchtime, confronting the terrorists threatening London. More boots on the ground and more armed police on the streets. The inspiring refugees who lost their homes are united in Rio under their own Olympic flag.
We don't know the same language, we are not from the same countries, but the Olympic flag united us, all of us together.
And the Welsh mum recovering from surgery whose reminder call netted 61 million on the lottery for her and her family.
I just felt like I cheated death in a way. I just feel so lucky.
This is the ITV Lunchtime News with Alistair Stewart.
Good afternoon. The competition authorities found two-thirds of customers were losing hundreds of pounds a year because they didn't know about switching suppliers or they couldn't be bothered to do it. Ofgem, the regulator today, accepted that and said it would work with the power companies to encourage customers into action. Poorer customers on prepaid tariffs, many in rented accommodation, will see a cap on what they pay until fairer, smarter meters kick in 2020. Till then, they'll still be saving between £70 and £80 a year. But critics say that doesn't go far enough, and those who play the system will still be the winners, as Charlotte Grant reports.
Danny Coakley relies on his prepay meter, topping up to have enough gas and electricity. But his high tariffs mean he often struggles to pay.
With the prices so high and with you having to use so much gas and electric just to stay warm when it is really cold in the winter, there has been times you just had to make the difference, had to make the choice between heating or eating, and obviously you choose to eat. So it means you're pretty cold, but you don't really have a choice.
That's why for 2 years an investigation's looked at how to make sure customers get the best deals on their gas and electricity. Now the regulator Ofgem is going ahead with plans to reform the energy market.
I think it's going to create a more competitive market. I think it's going to protect people from bad treatment by their suppliers, and particularly it's going to protect the most vulnerable in society.
The Ofgem proposals will affect customers who have a prepay energy meter, around 4 million of them. It could help save them £75 a year, but it won't help those on a standard variable tariff, around 70% of UK households, who, according to the latest figures, are already paying too much for their energy.
I think this is the last chance for the industry to get its act together. It needs to do that, because if it doesn't, there's going to be more regulation. But there are things that people can do immediately. Look, a lot of people are frightened of switching. They don't know about it. They don't know how to go about it.
Smart meter displays are portable devices that can sit anywhere in the home.
By 2020, smart meters will be introduced, which should give customers access to better deals. But until then, the worry is the focus is not on the companies supplying your energy, but what tariff you're on. So it's down to customers to keep comparing and switching to ensure they're getting the best deal. Charlotte Grant, ITV News.
And our business editor, Joel Hills, is outside the Ofgem headquarters in central London live for us this lunchtime. Charlotte talking there about fair prices, Joel, but are these reforms going to mean that we finally pay a fair price for gas and electricity?
Well, look, Alistair, the CMA is of the view that collectively consumers are paying something like £1.5 billion a year over the odds. So you would expect, if these reforms do work, that the companies, the big companies, would make less money. Now, if you look at the share prices of Centrica and SSE this morning, they've barely moved, rather suggesting that the market doesn't expect this is going to materially damage their profitability. But there are signs of change. Last week, British Gas revealed it had lost 400,000 customers in the last 6 months. Last summer, you may recall, npower fired its chief executive after profits slumped, rather suggesting it was being punished for pretty lousy performance. But there are people who think, look, there's a simple suggestion here. If the regulator believes prices are too high, why doesn't it simply cut them? The answer is it doesn't have that power, but the answer is too that the chief executive of Ofgem doesn't want that power. He believes that if customers realise that they could save hundreds of pounds every year if they were motivated to switch, that they will do precisely that. Let's see what happens.
Indeed, let's wait and see. Joel, thank you. Well, for a start, if you want to find out if you're on the cheapest tariff and tips on how you can switch, just visit our website, the address itv.com/news. More armed police will patrol London's major landmarks after the recent terror attacks in Europe. The head of the Metropolitan Police Force says the move will help reassure the public and deter potential attackers. But there are questions about whether extra security should extend outside the capital too, as Nick Thatcher reports.
It's a show of strength designed, we're told, to reassure, not to alarm us. A specialist firearms team equipped with motorbikes that would be the frontline response to any terrorist attack in London. We can't name the officers, of course, but one of them told ITV News why the bikes were so important.
In a gridlocked city, traffic in London is bad in any circumstance. In particular, in an instant of an attack, we could expect chaos on the streets. What this gives us is a tried and tested and genuine method of fast response to anywhere across central London and further.
This is how we've traditionally known armed police to look like. Today we learned the first of 600 additional officers are now trained and ready to patrol well-known landmarks in London. But we're also told terrorists could strike anywhere and at any time, and there are concerns the rest of the country may not be ready to respond in this way.
How are we going to deal with the shortage of officers that are actually trained at the moment? We're well below the numbers that we were even 3 or 4 years ago of officers able to carry firearms.
It was a point I put to the Metropolitan Police Chief.
We have a good plan to support each other in the event of an attack. So it may be somewhere else we will go and support them. We go there and deal with it as quickly as possible. And there's good broad contingency plans about how the military can support that. We don't talk in detail about any of this, but there are good plans there. We've already increased the number of officers and we need to be mobile to respond, not only in London, but elsewhere.
Today's display of armed strength was not in response to any specific intelligence, but with the terror level at severe, the Commissioner's already said it's a case of when and not if, and he's determined his force is ready. Nick Thatcher, ITV News.
And police are investigating after a suspicious incident in Aldershot this morning. Officers say 2 men were seen acting suspiciously, and Sally Lockwood is here. You've been looking at this for the last hour or so. What have you found out?
Well, we know that 2 men were spotted in a blue Renault Clio in the area around Aldershot Garrison this morning, apparently acting suspiciously, but Hampshire Police has said that there's no evidence to suggest any crime has taken place. However, as we've seen in Nick's report there, it's clear the security services, the military, are very jumpy at the moment. And I've spoken to a military source in Aldershot this morning who's told me that troops there have been briefed in light of this morning's incident. They've been told not to go off base wearing uniform and to travel to and from work in civilian clothing. This, of course, comes exactly 2 weeks after an attempted abduction at RAF Marham in Norfolk, where police continue to hunt for 2 attackers who tried to drag an RAF serviceman into a car. Today's incident, perhaps more an indication of how careful the military community is being at the moment.
And, of course, Aldershot, the home of the British Army.
Absolutely, and I understand security has been stepped up there.
All right, Sally, thank you very much. HSBC has reported a 29% fall in profits for the first half of the year, describing it as a turbulent period. It still posted pre-tax profits of £9.7 billion, albeit down almost £4 billion. The banking giant says it's a reasonable performance in the face of considerable uncertainty. And a new study's found the salaries across the UK rose last month by an average 3%. Job site CV Library, which published the findings, says it is an indication businesses are pushing harder to find the best candidates in the face of post-Brexit uncertainties. Now, the man who was favourite to take over from Nigel Farage as the leader of the UK Independence Party has been barred from the race. Stephen Wolfe's application was judged ineligible because it was submitted late. Since that decision to exclude him, 3 members of UKIP's ruling National Executive Committee have resigned. Our political correspondent Libby Vina is live in Westminster for us. Is this causing real splits within the party, Libby?
Well, yes, I think that's an understatement. Now, UKIP may have won the war in terms of taking us out of the European Union, but what about the peace? They seem to have reverted to self-destruct mode, excluding 2 of the most charismatic characters who are tipped to succeed Nigel Farage from the leadership race. First there was Suzanne Evans, and today now we've heard that Stephen Wolfe, the party's immigration spokesman, has been told that he can't put his name forward because he put his application in too late. A technicality, you might think. Some might also suggest that someone aspiring to lead a national party would know what the deadline was for the leadership race. Nevertheless, Nigel Farage, that I spoke to earlier this morning, he says that the national executive is in disarray. It simply doesn't work, he said. And Mr. Wolfe himself said that he was deeply disappointed at the outcome. I think that it's likely now that there will be a challenge to that decision. As you say, 3 members of the NEC have actually resigned. There is a movement within the party now to try and get an emergency general meeting which will choose a new NEC. That could delay the leadership election, and I think the person who will be most disappointed with that is Diane James, who is now the front runner with Stephen Wolfe excluded. She very successfully contested the Eastleigh by-election 3 years ago, coming second, but is also known for some controversial comments, for example, saying that she admired President Putin.
Libby, thank you. Still to come, the refugee from Syria who will swim at the Olympics under a special flag. And a big Welsh win, the family who scooped more than £60 million on the lottery. But first, dentists for generations have been telling us to brush twice a day and to floss. But the NHS is due to review its guidance on oral hygiene after an investigation into America's Department for Health and Human Services found that it had no proof that using dental floss prevents gum disease or indeed stops cavities. The research compared the use of a toothbrush with the combination of toothbrushes and floss together, and it found that flossing was of little benefit at all. It took into consideration 25 different studies over 10 years, all of which found no evidence that flossing works. But the current advice from the NHS is still that it is important to floss regularly to reduce plaque that forms along the gum line, which may reduce gum disease. I am delighted now to be joined live by Dr. Samir Patel, a clinical director of a dental practice. Delighted because it leaves me confused, let alone everybody else listening to our conversation. What should we do?
I think it's very interesting that they've brought out this investigation, and really flossing and some sort of interdental work is required. So toothbrushing alone only cleans 3 sides of a cube. And so in between the teeth, how are you going to clean that with just the toothbrush? So
the Americans are saying, 10 studies over a period of a quarter of a century, no evidence that it works.
I think the real key incidence is a lot more has now come onto the market, just not flossing. So we have those interdental aids, the brushes, the water picks.
Little fellas like pipe cleaners.
Absolutely right. Yeah. And so it's not only flossing that's required. Now, with flossing, what we'll find is techniques are often wrong. And if the techniques aren't wrong, they can cause trauma. So my real advice to most people out there is consult your dentist. What is best for interdental cleaning? Whether it's floss, whether it's interdental pipe cleaners, or it's the water picks. But I think the key thing is it's everybody's slightly different, and this is a cross-sectional study. If you're susceptible to periodontal problems or gum problems, you've got to clean better because the smallest amount of bacteria is going to affect you, and that's going to cause a problem. Sure. So flossing as part of a wider range of oral hygiene routine is important.
Sure. And periodontal, you're talking there particularly about the gum bit, not the nice lump of enamel that we all claim.
Absolutely.
Now, within that, is there an age factor as well, that as we get older, we need to take almost more care of our gums than we do actually of the enamel bit of the tooth?
Yeah, I think most older people will actually suffer more from periodontal problems than actually the sugar and the caries, because they're not having those sweets, they're not having the fizzy drinks that can cause that. It's actually you're getting longer in the tooth, the gums are receding a little bit, and you're getting that small area in between the teeth to clean. So as part of everybody's natural oral hygiene routine, I think it's really important that it's individualised and to get the information from your particular dentist for yourself.
All right, that's extremely helpful, and I'm most relieved. Dr. Patel, thank you very much indeed for coming in. Now a plane has made an emergency landing at Dubai airport after reportedly catching fire mid-air. The Boeing 777-300 jet exploded on the runway after more than 300 people were evacuated. 24 of the passengers are believed to have been British. No one was injured, but there are no flights leaving Dubai International as that investigation continues. Now, for athletes competing at the Rio Olympics, national pride is crucial. The honour of representing one's homeland, a crowning career glory. But in the next few days, they will line up alongside a very special group of sportsmen and women, 10 refugees, forced to flee their homelands by conflict and by fear. Well, the Olympic movement has recognised them and welcomed them as a team in their own right. Ivor Bennett has their inspiring story.
They're taking in the sights, and who can blame them? Take Yusra, for example, the second from the right. Her perilous journey from Syria to Europe involved her swimming for her life. Now, she's preparing to swim in the Olympics.
I'll be honored, I'll be proud, I'll be happy. I'll have the pain in my stomach because this is a great feeling. And yeah, of course I'm gonna think of everyone who supported me.
Yusra has been training in Germany, but had to rely on her strength in the water long before she reached her new home. On the crossing from Turkey to Greece, the boat she was in started sinking, so she jumped in and pulled it for over 3 hours to save the lives of all those on board. That same sense of sacrifice and unity, she says, is what binds her new team together.
We don't know the same language, we are not from the same countries, but the Olympic flag united us, all of us together. And yeah, now we are representing 60 million around the world.
It's the first time ever a team of refugees has competed in the Olympics, a triumph against adversity that also betrays the world's problems. Yeek Perbil was just 10 years old when he fled the war in Sudan. A life marked by running away, he now has a very clear goal to run towards, the 800 metres.
We have tear of sorrow, and now we are going to have tear of joy. This is not the end for everything. I hope it is a door, or it is an open way for other young talented people.
They may not challenge for medals or make the finals, but in this case it really is the taking part that counts. Ivor Bennett, ITV News.
And finally, it is an eye-watering amount of money, £61.1 million. Oh, and a few pence as well. Well, a family from Wales are celebrating after winning that huge sum of money on the lottery. Perfectly reasonable celebration, the traditional spraying of champagne for Sonia Davies and her family. Well, our Wales correspondent, Rupert Evelyn, is at the Celtic Manor Resort in Newport for us live this lunchtime. Could they believe their luck?
I don't think they could believe their luck. No, Alistair. This family's worth a very cool £61 million. Wow. You've heard it an awful lot over the last few days.
We have, but it just doesn't sink in.
It doesn't, no. Sonia, just explain to me. You had a belief, didn't you? Explain why you were feeling lucky and why you wanted to buy that ticket.
Because I just had an operation to remove a tumour from a parathyroid gland, which was successful. But the surgeon did say afterwards that if I'd left it another 3 years, quite possibly I wouldn't have been here. So I just felt like the luckiest woman in the world.
And you were in the States at this moment in time, weren't you?
We were in Tampa, yes. And we had an email ping up on my partner's phone to say, roll over lotto. And we just thought, we're so lucky. Hence my phone call to my daughters, both of them, to make them go and buy the lottery ticket because, life was just looking so good at that moment.
You took the call, Stephanie, didn't you? Were you thinking, oh, come on, Mum?
Yeah, well, they FaceTimed me on Friday evening, literally half an hour before the cut-off time for it. And I just thought, oh, come on, Mummy, it's been a long week. It's Friday, it's 7 o'clock. But, I thought with everything that's happened that week, I've got to do it because you just never know. But
Tell me about the moment, Steve, when the two of you checked the numbers.
Well, it was just surreal, really. I mean, you know, you always say you'd be jumping up and down and screaming, but it was quite the opposite. We just couldn't believe it. We were shaking, panicking, crying,
just
and double checking, triple checking, and then it became a reality that we might actually have the winning ticket. So of course we just went into secret mode then and shut the doors and windows and tried to hide it away as best as possible in case anyone was listening, really.
It's an extraordinary figure, isn't it, Courtney and Keith? And
insane.
When they called you and said, we won,
Yeah.
you obviously believed them.
At first I just said, you know, come on, obviously you're joking, but she was crying so much, I just thought, it's real, it's real. And we sat on the phone for like 10-15 minutes, just both of us saying, oh my gosh, like, what's happened? Like, oh my gosh. And in the end, I just said, look, Steph, I'm going to bed. We're not even talking to each other anymore. We're just saying, oh my God, over and over again. So just hang up and went to bed then.
What are you going to do with it, Keith? Have you decided?
No, I think, you know, something of this magnitude in size, you know, still doesn't hit home. We haven't slept for 3 days. We're just thinking about, you know, carrying on our life as normal, really, but it's not normal, is it? It still isn't real. But I think the main thing for us is, you know, we'll enjoy it eventually, and, you know, we can help family and friends. That's what we'll do.
Thank you very much. I know, Sonia, when you were waiting to get on that plane, you flew economy, didn't you?
We did fly economy, and we got delayed at Tampa Airport and finally got away from there. We got stuck at JFK because there was no pilot. And we actually said, well, we've got all this money, let's just get the first flight out. And there weren't any. So it was the longest journey of our life. And yes, it was economy. We just
Quite possibly the wealthiest people in economy on that flight. Thank you very much. Good luck with it all, and you know, I'm sure you'll enjoy it. And yeah, from here in South Wales, it's, well, I think a pretty upbeat day.
Brilliant. Rupert and all of your guests, thank you very much indeed. So they were clearly very lucky in Monmouth to win that cash. If you want to see the luckiest locations in Britain as a whole to buy a ticket, just go to itv.com/news. And if you'd like to tell us what you'd do with that money, then just go to the Facebook and drop in there, facebook.com ITV News. That is it this lunchtime. I'll be back with the ITV Evening News at 6:30 with Mary Nightingale. Hope you can join us then. But for now, from the entire lunchtime team, a very good afternoon to you. Bye-bye.